Regulatory Affairs, is not good. It is my opinion. I've heard rumors that basically Republicans are asking older, senior bureaucratic leaders to retire early and push them out and trying to replace them with younger Republican plants that want to fight against us. So that's basically what I believe happened between the first panel and the second one. They were able to replace a lot of people that just want to do it correctly, and now they've got lawyers and professional Republicans in place running it. That's why autism and asthma both got screwed by somehow changing the panel. They kept the first two meetings from the first panel, which was disavowed, and they, in my opinion, disavowed it because they didn't like the outcome of post-traumatic stress. Replaced it. But since they had already gone through with autism, they decided to continue that for some reason. So they stopped post-traumatic stress and Parkinson's, but then somehow continued on with the second panel, knowing that it wasn't going to pass because when it went through the first time, no one testified, and the people that put in the petitions didn't provide any real information. So no, it's not fair. And there are some people there, when you go there and you listen to them, they're not there to help us. They've got roles to play, and their role is to be an obstructionist. If you go there and you listen to them, don't get upset. Just understand that they have a role to play, and their role is to get in our way. We have to deal with it. How far we get, I don't know. The other one thing I want to say about it is we need to have a little bit more empathy for the panel. We can't expect them to go and just do the research themselves. They don't care. And in fact, our enemies on the other side, the pharmaceutical companies, they're not telling them to go do the research. They're spoon feeding them with trips to the Bahamas and models. That's what we're up against. So for us to sit back and argue and say they need to do their own research, or we expect the panel to do something, they're not used to doing things. They're used to being fed money and reports and decisions. So if anyone wants to give a petition, you're going to need research, you're going to need documentation, and as I said last time, we're going to need people up there. When autism went through, whoever put that petition through didn't even show up. One person, Gersh, goes by the name of Peanut Butter, he testified. They actually kept the auditorium open for an hour, waiting to see if anyone showed up. So without that type of support, it was never going to pass. And to be angry afterwards, it's kind of ironic. You weren't there. I mean, we needed people there. We're going to need people there when it's time for veterans also. And the other one that's up this time is sleeping disorder, please? Insomnia. Insomnia, thank you. We're going to need patients to testify to that. That didn't go over too well, but patient testimony can carry a lot of weight. I don't know what's happening with Parkinson's. Somehow that just got completely dropped off the board. It was approved, and they're not even considering it this time. I don't know who filed that petition. I'd like to think that there's a lawyer out there that says that's a real case for that one to be completely just dropped off. And no one's talking too much about that one. The other two, asthma and autism, there was word from one of the bureaucrats in the table that they would not be reconsidered. I don't know if that's law, or if that is policy, or if that's part of the new policy. When I was going through the first petition for post-traumatic stress, I joked with the individuals running the board that I didn't care if it failed because I'd be right back at it. And they were like, yeah, okay, we'll see you. And that was kind of accepted for me, I thought. And then to hear it at the table on Tuesday, that those two would not be reconsidered, kind of hurt. but maybe there's some legal recourse for that. Other than that, yeah, we did get a vote of 7-2, doctors for post-traumatic stress. Sometime in the next 60 days, there will be a chance for public testimony. It'll be on the website. I'll put it on Facebook and try and get the word out as best I could, as best I can. And then there'll be a third decision, or a third vote, third meeting, third vote. And at that time, it's actually just a recommendation. So all of this work actually just goes up to one individual, and that's Director of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs, a gentleman named Steve Atwood. He's been politically appointed to that job by our governor. Yeah. One guy is starting to scare me a lot, and what he may be doing to us. Well, that's, any questions? I don't know if there's anything else I can say. Other than I'm going to ask for everyone's help when it comes time for a public testimony. I'll let everyone know. Go ahead.
Did you say Insomnia was rejected by the
Not rejected. It was voted down. And it's a procedural vote at this time. The procedure, and good question, I totally blew over this part. The procedure is a three-part procedure involving through 3 meetings. The first and the third are somewhat procedural. The first one we had on Tuesday, and it was a mess because it had 2 meetings going on at different times. But theoretically, the first meeting, the panel members are given the information. They have a roundtable discussion based on what they know. Discuss the topic as they feel best, and have a vote based on what they know. It's not a binding vote, it's just to see who's on what side and what position people are taking. The third meeting is actually just public testimony. That's when we get to go and speak out and tell our stories and have it done on a public record. During that time period, before the third meeting, they're supposed to review all the evidence they're given and the public testimony and come to that third meeting, then again debate the issue amongst themselves, see if they can change each other's minds, and then have a third vote. That third vote then is a recommendation to the Director of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. And Insomnia was voted down, I think 7-2, the opposite of what post-traumatic stress was voted up for. On the first vote. So it needs some work. It needs some research, it needs papers, it needs information, it needs public testimony. There'll be an address, webpage to write in if you want to just write in your testimony. But it's a process. It's an ugly process, but that's what we got. Go ahead.
Historically speaking, how often do they vote accordingly to the recommendation?
It's never been done before, and yeah, this is the first time. And it's hard to say. I'd like to think there's enough information, and it's happened twice, and we've had 2 positive votes on post-traumatic stress, that if we get it recommended a second time, well, at least there's 2 panels voted for it, and he should recognize that. But if he's there for political reasons, it may not matter. It just may not matter. Anything else? All right, Mish. I'm going to punt.
Punt.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
That's John Evans, and he's also a charter member, so definitely look him up. The next person that's going to be talking is Francine and Joe from Iron Laboratories. They came on out. They're going to be talking about cannabis testing. I actually found out something about Iron Labs today. I've known about Iron Labs now for about 1.5 years, and I know that they've done a lot of testing from our members. One of our key members, Mark S., actually, he does a ton of testing with Iron Labs, and he's a diehard fan of theirs. And I also know that from a couple of other charter members as well. Solid testing. I actually talked to Rob. What is Robbie? Yeah, I talked to Robbie today, And he informed me that their laboratory is going to be the second laboratory in the country to be ISO certified. So that's going to be that's a huge step in the right direction. I think they're in pending phase right now. That's awesome. Congratulations, guys. I mean, that's the way you got to go. That's the way you want to make the movement happen. That's an applause right there. Absolutely. For the second one to be in the country, that better be a big fat press release. So I'd like you to welcome Francine and Joe.
Hello. Hello. So we are Iron Labs. We are based out of Walled Lake, although I go all over the state to help facilitate the testing needs of everyone in all different markets. Like he was speaking, Traverse City, and all the way throughout. Down in Detroit, I myself, I come down to Detroit every Wednesday. You know, we'll have our cards over here so you can contact me if you need us to pick up any medicine to be tested, and we can get that tested usually relatively soon, 24 hours or so. This is Joe, he's our chemist, but they're, check out our website, as I encourage you to look at that, because that'll show you all the different dispensary owners and all the different cultivators who are testing, the medicines that they're testing. If you're looking for medicine that's clean and been tested, that's a good spot to go just for the website. You can check for the medicine and see the different dispensaries that might be in your area that can help you get those meds. That's a good bonus. It's good, clean medicine without any loads and all that. So this is Joe. He's one of our chemists. We have Joe the chemist. We have Brent. He has dual biology degrees. There's a lot of machinery that I'm not going to pretend to know much about, but that's their jobs. But it's good. The testing is what we're all about there. That's all we test. We test. And Joe is going to talk about that.
Yeah, so at Iron Laboratories, our focus is getting good, clean medication to patients who may have immune problems. Their body's fighting off some illness. We don't want to take any other pathogens in that potentially could harm us as well. So we work with a lot of patients and a lot of caregivers in order to test their meds or what they're growing, or what they're consuming. And the idea is that it's really important for everyone to do this kind of research and to categorize what really benefits their illness. It really helps build that research and that data that people who are looking for medication can look to in the future, because a lot of that information isn't out there. Speaking to, I wasn't prepared for this. But speaking to the whole idea of petitioning and getting these illnesses put on as qualifying conditions, it's really important to know what kind of meds are beneficial to it, and to have that in writing. This is the medication, and it's clearly noticeable that high CBD does in fact help with my seizures, or this particular medication does help with my nausea, and back it with some numbers. At Iron Labs, we've been testing quite a few samples for just over 2 years now. We've tested about 5,000 to 6,000 samples, about 1,000 edibles that patients are preparing who don't want to smoke, or who maybe can't smoke due to various respiratory problems associated with their illness. So it's really important that they can make sure that the medication that they're taking, they're preparing at home maybe, isn't too strong. So we like to be able to test that type of medication for them. And pushing for a national standard with a lot of other states, it's really hard to know what you're consuming. And when one lab comes back with another number, and then another state it might be, we got 30% marijuana, and everyone here's got something else. So it's really important that there is a standard across the nation. So being ISO, which is International Standard Organization, I believe, 17025 certified, states that where our methods are consistent, and we'll be able to apply in another lab, so that that the results are really accurate. So this is a step in the right direction towards making this standard in all the states that are testing, so that when you see a Girl Scout cookies, that the strain that you're getting is actually going to produce a 22% or be a high CBD strain, which is beneficial for your condition. But Speaking on purity now, in addition to you know the fancy scientific research aspect of it, it's really important. We work with a lot of caregivers that are you know supplying medicine to a number of patients, and they want to make sure that their medicine is clean and that they're not giving someone medicine with mold or bugs and hair and all kinds of you know fibers and you know things on that. So we provide testing for purity as well, and we do a complex biological analysis in which we look for contaminants, we look for active cultures of mold and stuff that if you smoke can potentially give you bronchitis or pneumonia. So it's that's the the reason why we do what we do is we want to make sure that everyone has access to safe meds and safe being clean and pure and what they want, not too strong. Not like, oh my God, I can't move. So it's really important to have those So does anyone have any questions about our testing? This guy here.
Well, you talked about being too strong and all that. My question would be, because I've talked to different people and about treatment for cancer. Some people say you want the high, 97% THC and 3% or whatever, 1.2 or CBD. And I've heard other people say really you need like 35.
Yeah, I think the beneficial nature of cannabinoids is having a lot of different ones all mixed together. So THC is really important, and CBD is a good one as well. And without one, they don't work as well. They're very synergistic. 1 + 1 makes 3. So the idea is when you add other cannabinoids like cannabidiol, and then even the acid variants of all those, so that the non-psychoactive, uncooked form of THC and CBD, they also contribute as separate little cannabinoids when they're in that different form. And so the way it works in your body, having a lot of them is more beneficial than having any one in general. So there's a lot of research being done as to what ones and what ratios are beneficial for different conditions, and that's kind of what our work is really important for, is to be able to associate that ratio from one to the other right now. But there isn't a lot of information out there yet, and I can't necessarily suggest or say you're right or wrong. There's a very large component of the effects of marijuana is due to the concentrations like that.
So if you didn't have a lot of time and you had to do something, what would you choose? The higher THC?
So for cancer, what's really beneficial is like a raw bud juicing, where you've got mostly in the acid form. It's not going to get you high, and you can get you have a lot of 5 different types of cannabinoids essentially, and they're really good for anti-inflammatory. They're really good at targeting and getting all over the body without being quickly metabolized by your monoamine oxidase system or whatever that gets the cannabinoids out of your system. It's going to be a little bit more slower acting, longer acting when you consume it that way, and it's not going to be psychoactive. It's not going to get you high, but it's going to be more beneficial into having high cannabinoid concentrations. A lot of cancer patients, for the Rick Simpson oil treatment, it's just like getting up to a gram a day and stuff like that. And if you're doing it in pure cooked, decarboxylated THC, you're going to be loopy, especially if you start out at that high of a dose. The walls are going to be, sparkling and stuff, and you're not going to be able to move. You're going to have tremors. It's not fun. So the idea is, and the only cure for that seems to be music and a warm shower. That's what I find. But anyway, so what you want to do is you can work your way up, but you can still have a lot of cannabinoid. You can take a gram of THC, but half of it uncooked, and it won't be as intense. Work your way up to the fully cooked if that's what you want to do. If you think the fully cooked is going to be more beneficial for your condition, but being able to take a 50-50 or an uncooked that doesn't get you high, but still have the benefit, the anti-inflammatory, the pain, some of the pain relief, it becomes really. It helps, so in that sense, if you're dealing with a patient like that, start them off with something that's not maybe cooked. And, in that sense, this is all about edibles, and edibles are really a gray area right now, so it's kind of a touchy topic to speak on, but when it comes down to, plant matter, it's just a matter of like temperature in which you're smoking it at, or if you were to just eat it or juice it, at home, juice your plant, that would give you like no high, but a lot of cannabinoids, whereas then smoking it would be like all the cannabinoids and all the high as well. So you do have a range. I think this guy had a question I'm going to get to first.
Yes, you just check the potency.
Yeah, well, we look for a number of cannabinoids, 8 to be exact, and so we characterize and profile them. There are some other ones, and there's unnatural ones, man-made in that sense. But we only look for the most abundant, like the most common cannabinoids that you would find in a strain. And we basically give it a profile, and that profile is very based on the genetics. So you can be a grower and you can see the profile increase and decrease, but it's almost like the amount of each cannabinoid is directly related to the strain.
Okay. Going back to this gentleman's question, what I would suggest is that you take a real close look at what the Israelis are doing today. They're on the forefront of the actual scientific side of all this and finding out what does what.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they're doing a lot of research there and putting clinical trials to that research and stuff.
Kind of a related question that it's probably losing one, but I don't know yet, is when you have the bud and you test the bud, and let's just say I'm just going to throw a number out there, 5% THC, 5% CBD.
Mm-hmm.
When you make the oil, does that double, triple, or does that stay the same?
There's a factor, like it'll basically probably, it depends on the process that you employ in order to concentrate it. Different methods, different processes have a different, amount that they'll concentrate it. If you start with 5% and you do the best extraction, you might get like 30 to 40%, or you might get 80%. But it depends on the method. And, like that's another touchy topic too, but there are, the better material you start with, the better the final product's going to be, and the less number of steps you're going to have to go through. So in that sense, if you want a really high potent thing, you want to start with something that's extremely potent, start with just flowers. If you're using trim, you're always going to have that lesser quality of material. Unless you employ, extensive steps to clean it, and that's not what is economically feasible for a lot of people.
So you say the products are like talk about the nap.
There's a lot of different products that have been suggested for use and that other people are using. Naphtha potentially can have a lot of impurities in it, which can produce a medicine that's not safe for smoking if it's not done right. So, I like to discourage the use of naphtha. If there are better alternatives, and if you wanted to do something similar to that type of a thing, taking the extra step and getting, hexane or something like that would be a much more advisable thing to do. But I can't suggest that at all.
Because of what happened with the whole, now that it's a touchy subject type of thing, with concentrates and stuff, you guys don't test concentrates?
We're not testing concentrates for caregivers anymore. Like the idea is that a caregiver isn't technically allowed to provide that for their patients. I would like to say, patients are more inclined now to, I guess, do it themselves, which is even more dangerous in this sense, because under the law, you're still technically allowed to have it as medicine and possess it, and you can use your affirmative defense against it, I believe. But in terms of having it and selling it and carrying it with the other half of the law, it's not legal. So there's a big amount of interpretation left to do it, and I think what's going to happen is a lot of people are going to just make it at home, and that's not necessarily the best thing to do. So we don't test it for caregivers and stuff, but like cooking your own stuff, it becomes an issue where you really want to know what you're ingesting now. So it's a lot harder to do that for a lot of patients.
contact your legislator.
Yeah, contact your legislature
And-
unless you
That was done in
change
November.
it.
Mish told me that they have,
Help
Michigan
volunteer
Convention
with these
has
petitions, let's
a,
get these conditions qualified so that, you know, there are more people who really do want, you know, who can use this medication, that alternative medication, and who, can lend their help to this cause.
Yeah.
And if you'd like, give us a call, we can answer any of your questions, get you tested, you know, make sure.
Definitely. And we can sign up today. We're ready for that. Mish did mention something about a booklet that you had that.
Yes,
as
our,
far as contacting legislator.
our guides.
locally or-
Okay, so these guides are going to be coming out. We've got a second volume coming out here shortly. And the second volume is going to be in ebook form. We actually have a publisher backing us now. Actually, two publishers. So both publishers are wanting to take this guide on a national scale. We're going to be providing this in an ebook form. So you're going to see the ebook form in about 3 weeks is what the timing is. The ebook form, I believe, is going to be $3.99 or $2.99, something like that. And then we're going to have, it's not 8.5 by 11. We have actually reduced the size based on what the publisher said. There's certain ideas that need to be done. So this is going to be a reduced version. It's going to be a 9 by 6. So it'll be a little bit more easier to carry around. We did have the first volume of this was 275 copies. That's what we could afford. We afforded 275 copies with the sponsors that we had and what we had raised amongst ourselves. And this guide is actually opening up other doors, meaning we're going to have an Illinois guide coming up. We're going to have a Northeast guide coming up. We're going to have all of the new states coming up with new guides as well. So we've actually got a host of volunteers working just on the guide. Specifically on the guide. We have a graphic designer, we have a web designer, we've got 2 publishers involved, we've got a marketing company now. A lot of individuals are starting to look at this guide and say, wow, this is a way to stay safe, this is a way to follow the law properly, and it's a way for patients and caregivers and business owners to see how to deal with things. The other aspect that this guide does is it actually helps individuals contact their political representatives. So their state reps, their congressmen, it has the phone numbers in it. It goes down to your county levels as well. We are not here to tell you that you should vote for it or against it. We are here to stay neutral. We are here to provide you with information. As a federal public charity, that's all we can do. Okay? Individually, we have our opinions, of course. And as everybody does, but as an organization, we stay neutral and we can educate about the laws, about the cases that are coming up, about the court cases and all of that information. So keep that in mind. Like I said, this guide is going to be coming out as an ebook. You're going to see it on Amazon. You're going to see it on Barnes & Nobles. And a number of gas stations is what I've heard too. So like I said, things are progressively moving forward faster than we had expected. The next volume is going to be, I believe, 2,000 copies. So that'll be the first batch of the 9x6s coming out. And every 4 months, we're going to be updating it with a volume 2, volume 3, volume 4. The publisher that's involved may actually offer a subscription for it. So that's pretty cool too. So as a nonprofit that's going to be able to do this, that's another thing that's come up. And then another thing that's popped up on our radar is the FDA actually contacted us this past week, and they would like for us to participate in a grant. It's a $50,000 grant for publications. So it's pretty cool that we are starting to finally open bigger doors too. So the next person to talk will be Yoshi Sakashita. And actually met him a couple weeks ago. actually, was it like 6 weeks ago? No, 6 weeks ago? Or 8 weeks ago? I don't know, something like that. A buddy of Ian's, and he actually introduced me to some pretty cool enhanced eyewear. I call them enhanced because, and I don't say protective for one reason. It does